This is Physics for Psychics, where the mystical becomes scientific.
Welcome to Physics for Psychics, where the mystical becomes science. This is a show where we explore psychic phenomena and we'll use physics to explain how it all works. Please welcome our co-host, Starella Alexandria, over here, clairvoyant, visionary, and author, who will be joining us today on the topic of reincarnation. And without further ado, I give you Countess Starella Alexandria.
Welcome to the blissful world of Countess Nadia Starella Alexandria, author, raconteur, visionary, luminous prophetess. Did I say clairvoyant? I better get that one in there. Costume designer, film historian, en vivant, ruler of the known world. So happy to have you. I promise you, an exciting day.
Thank you for that beautiful introduction. And I'm glad that we're back on our second podcast here. And I'm going to start with asking you about your past lives. And if you could please give us a little anecdote or whatever you remember of one of your past lives. I do remember you mentioning quite a few that you remember. So why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
The journey to remembering both the past and the future began at around age 6. And I am told that many mystics and gurus and avatars and bodhisattvas began having their revelations right around that young age. I began to hear the voices of guides, masters from other lifetimes. And throughout life, certain synchronicities would emerge, linking some picture or thought or story to something from the past. It took a while to really grasp the idea that it was a tangible thing. There are many non-believers. I have a feeling that after this show, any of you who are uncertain will be convinced. Let me think of the most prominent ones. I would say Egypt, Italy, and Japan. I'm certain I've had 9,036 years of experiences. And more, the memories are rising to the surface. And I will just give you one quick example of what absolutely confirmed the existence of these lives. When I went to Japan for the first time, it took me about a month to get the language, but the minute I descended from the plane, everything looked familiar. There's no way that could have happened from any other source than an active memory. And I would say to the people that were guiding me, you know, there's a castle over there, and there's an old fort over here, and there's this, and this used to be. They said, oh, you've been here before, right? I said, no, this is my first time, but I guess I have been here before in a previous incarnation. What a fascinating experience. That crystallized it. Before that, I had a pretty good idea that other countries were in the roster of visited realms. And what is, in my opinion, the most significant thing about remembering? To remember nobility, finesse, compassion, wisdom, innocence, the preservation of the miraculous gifts that all of you have been given. When we bring this nobility and justice and fairness and wisdom into the existing life, things start to change. And that's the goal. We're all part of the solution, right?
So, your account of past lives reminds me of a beautiful movie from Canada called Mr. Nobody. There's one scene that I love in this movie where it's just a world of clouds full of unborn souls, and they're all babies. and they're prancing around, and at this stage they have complete recollection of all their past lives. And the story goes that there's an angel that comes to each one of them. The angel places her finger right here, and that's what causes the crease under your nose. And when they do that, they actually clear the recollections of a past life so that you won't have that when you are born again. And it makes complete scientific sense. The brain has only finite storage, like any other hard disk that we have out there. It might have more than many, but it's not finite. It's not infinite, excuse me. And in that memory storage, you couldn't possibly store all the memories and all the recollections of 3,000 or 4,000 lives like some people, as yourself, has had. And also, very few people can handle going through the previous traumas of maybe perhaps the way they died, maybe some traumatic experience in the past. So there are special souls that still have that recollection. Maybe the angel didn't put your crease in there. And it again, here we go with physics for psychics. It makes perfect sense that in a finite storage that we have, that we couldn't possibly have the memories of all the past lifetimes we have. And let me ask you this, of those experiences, which ones reveal the gifts and the lessons of past lives to you the best?
This is a very interesting topic, oh ye of little faith. First of all, properly harnessed, the mind can remember everything that has happened since the beginning of creation. However, because humans sometimes have been taught to be a little insecure about old memories, it is good to have practitioners and teachers who show you how to neutralize those old things. There are very simple techniques for recognizing, just like something that happened in your existing life. There are such simple, fascinating techniques for addressing them and putting them in their proper place. And there's a karmic connection to some of the things that you're saying. Many people are insecure because they've been told by malpractitioners, all right, you're going to have to pay for something you did before. Listen, folks, you're in the high probability that you've already more than sacrificed and made up for anything that happened in the past. Your goal in this life is to be wisdom, understanding, laughter, and accomplishing your mission and destiny. If there's something that requires attention, your intuition will teach you exactly how to repair anything that has happened. And being empathetic to the needs of others would be high on the list to accomplishing that. Oh my, I would say Egyptian top of the list, because that was the most dynamic, intense, and remarkable of the societies. Japan, high on the list. Italian Renaissance, fascinating. Recollections in Paris, but especially because the Egyptians seemed to be so devoted to the spirit world and had such a wide view of how things worked, which was the forerunner to many of the disciplines that we're using now. Many of the most remarkable gifts and powers and abilities seem to have been acknowledged there to the highest degree.
I hear you. Now let's try to put a scientific spin to the aspect of reincarnation. And later on we'll talk about ESP and other clairvoyant and psychic phenomena. There's this book here, and many other scientists, by the way, this is an emerging theory that a lot of scientists are adhering to, that it seems like our world, the world that we live in right now and experiencing, is nothing more than a computer simulation. Now, I use the word computer loosely because it's not really a computer in the sense that we understand. It's that the way matter, the way physics describes what is going on in reality, in this reality, is very similar to the way video games work, for instance. Video games, anything, this graphic right here, these images, you, me, all these are built by tiny little pixels, right? And you put the pixels together, they have different colors, and they make this recording that we're doing and what we're seeing here. But in reality, it's just a bunch of little particles, right, that make what we're looking at. But so happens that computer programs, a computer monitor, is nothing but a bunch of pixels that get turned on and off. And when you play a video game, you're just playing a bunch of pixels moving on the screen. So you could say that atoms are the equivalent of pixels, and there is something called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. And what that means is when you're looking through the electron microscope and observing nature, it goes from a wave of probabilities where Countess Starella may exist in 3,000 different positions. It then folds itself. When we look at it and observe, it appears in one place as a particle. So when we're not looking at nature, it exists in a wave of probabilities. It is only when we look at nature that it coalesces into a singular point or particle. In the same way, when we're playing a video game and you see this village that you're about to enter, well, the village is just a collection of pixels, and it won't move, nothing happens until you take the step to go towards the village, and then the database retrieves the next map, repaints the pixels, and you see a new scene. Well, those are atoms, pixels, atoms. When you're not playing the game doesn't exist. When you're not looking at matter, matter doesn't exist. So there's a perfect analogy of what is reality that we know it as to playing a video game and realizing that when you log off the video game, that video game doesn't exist for all practical purposes. And that also ties into reincarnation and also ties into our reality. It is not that there's a supercomputer out there running and there's a bunch of super evolved aliens that have made this SimCity virtual reality game we call Earth or our universe. It's more likely that we have discovered a way to create reality. And it so happens that because there are rules in physics, the way we created our reality in the computer tends to be the same way that reality works because it's all following the rules of physics. What thoughts do you have along those lines?
My goodness, you truly are clairvoyant. Of all the people on planet Earth, you certainly know the things that I think. I love the way you articulate these incredible truths, and they are to remind you just what powerful creators we truly are. We are creating it as we go, but many people don't know about that kind of empowerment. They think someone else is doing it to them. But once one is aware of some of these principles and tenets of physics, one begins to see, oh my goodness, if I am creating, if I can create, I think I'll make it as wonderful as I'd like it to be.
Absolutely. Well, let's head on to talking about ESP, telekinesis, and all these other, I don't know if you want to call it mystical, but these unknown phenomena that a lot of people don't want to accept, but they are there. I can tell you that when I was young, as a teenager, whenever my mom had issues or had a fight with my dad, I would get this thought in my head that I had to call my mother, and I would call, and she would go, "You read my mind. How could you know that I was trying to reach you? I wanted to call you." And back then there were no cell phones, so I cannot tell you how many times that has happened in similar things. So when somebody sees the future as a clairvoyant, it could possibly be that they're just accessing, the future, the past, present, and future exist. You could look at it as a loaf of bread. It's out there. And we're here somewhere. But if you had the right knowledge, you can remember your past, but supposedly you can't remember your future. But in the right place, in the right knowledge, you can remember the future as well. Why do I say this? Because 60 years ago, no one knew how to predict the weather. That was thought to be impossible. There's too many variables. And today, we can predict the weather with very high accuracy. Why is that? Well, we've gained more knowledge about all the little things that affect the weather. Sometimes as tiny as the flap of a butterfly in Brazil that creates a cascading shower of events that eventually moves that hurricane that's heading towards the Caribbean maybe a few inches to the left and changes the outcome. But we are now able to predict the weather with very good accuracy. There's no reason not to believe that in some near future we will be able to predict future events with the same set of rules. Those rules that say if you have enough information in front of you, statistics, the same way that Wall Street works. The guys who are good at Wall Street, they're good clairvoyants with math, right? In that same way, I think eventually we will find that out, and it will no longer be magic or woo-woo stuff. We will see like, wow, we can understand clairvoyance easily. Looking at the fact that there's no reason why we could not see the past, the present, and the future in an equal way. Maybe we're not evolved enough.
This is a brilliant subject, and I am the world's leading expert. Everyone is born with the gifts. That's why I recently created a movie. It's called a book and a movie. An ordinary earth angel with extraordinary gifts, just like you. Everyone is born with the magic. Sit around a group of 4 and 5-year-olds from any country and watch what magic occurs. They have no restrictions on their genius. So, because I was tuned into it at such an early age and began to recognize our ability, something that came into my head, and I've heard many people say it, the greatest way to predict the future is to create it. What happens when you are awake, aware, observant, and you have learned how to tap into the stream of consciousness? A sort of holographic image can appear before you, which includes probability, possibility, likelihood, destiny, karma, timing, circumstance, courage, desire to know the truth. It's like thousands of little candles light, carrying all kinds of information. I've been lucky because I haven't had the normal life distractions to keep me from developing the, the recesses of this beautiful thing called the human mind. Oh, let everyone watching this realize what a spectacular gift we've all been given. We want to realize how DNA listens to our desires, our programs, our predictions. And a part of this, because I can tell the people watching us are rather gifted, they know there's a responsibility to self and to those around to keep a notice of how words affect destiny. They affect your present moment joy. If they're used properly, they can evaporate or wash away unhappy memories of the past. And then they can give you a number of paths and blueprints to the things that are coming. Clever, wise decisions are going to play a part in every step of one's evolution. But haven't you noticed, Stephen, that we are making quantum leaps in awareness and understanding right now?
Absolutely. It's almost like a new age of Aquarius happening. Are we? We could be in the age of Pisces. I'm not sure, but I wanted to ask you a little bit more about karma. What have been your experiences? What do you think karma is? And then I'll give it the scientific spin based on what we're talking about here today.
Good question. My first astute observation is the following. We rarely get to see what we think should be the karma of others. So we have to believe that there's some spectacular unseen forces of the universe guiding these things, some of which seem rather unfair to us or improper. But there is a beautiful harmony, synchronicity there. Rather than wish someone lives out some karma that you think they deserve, focus on self. The others have to take care of themselves. We look at what we've done. It often is crystal clear to us when we need to make up for some past transgression. And we don't want to attach so much importance to it that it is interfering with our present moment happiness. There are things that happen in past lives. Most of them are worked out very near the end of that lifetime prior to ascension. Because once one has ascended, then another valuable body of knowledge, big enough to fill the old Library of Alexandria, comes to them. And then they can determine how they're going to use that in the next lifetime, should they choose to make the next lifetime.
Yes, should they choose to come back? Well, that was an easy one. Perhaps it takes more than one lifetime to learn the lessons that you require. Same like as in a video game. You might have to, your character might die a few times before you master the video game and go back into Fortnite and battle the enemies successfully. There is one aspect of physics which Einstein discovered, and until the day that he died, he never fully understood or believed in it. And it's called the Einstein entanglement theory. And in this theory, Einstein discovered that a nucleus and a proton, that it has a certain condition over here at this part of the universe, sometimes is entangled with another neutron or proton that could be on the other side of the universe, and the state of this proton or neutron will immediately affect the state of this other one on the other side of the universe, and it defies the laws of physics and nature because it does it faster than the speed of light. It is instantaneous. And in a way, that shows you that everything is interconnected, and that we do affect, it doesn't matter the distance. That's one thing, like for ESP. It doesn't matter how far a person is, if you're entangled with that person, you will always be in contact with them in your mind. But also, at a very basic physics level, you have something very simple. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Again, going back to what this book suggests is, and that is, our world behaves very much like a video game. And in that sense, if you don't have enough time to gain the experience to play the game correctly, you're given, you might have 5 or 6 lives in the database in storage, but when you use them up, it's time to go.
Brilliant, brilliant. There's another fascinating aspect to this theory of cause and effect. Empowered people are at cause. Those who are still trying hard to climb up the ladder of understanding are often at effect. They think they're victims, they're being manipulated. But with a good teacher, they can learn how to create the things that they want, more of these things. And if they do happen to be in that strange space where they're affected by someone else, they can neutralize it quickly so that they can retain this power that is, in the past, reserved for kings, queens, gods, and goddesses. It is available to us at any time.
And with change comes a lot of things that are in upheaval. Our environment, the climate, we're overpopulated. And perhaps it is time for humanity to evolve, and it is required. Maybe that's built into the DNA of the universe, where at this stage in the history of Earth, we should have been a spacefaring civilization by now. And those who don't make it, by the time the Earth reaches a certain, or any planet that holds life reaches a certain point, then they don't make it. If we do not get beyond this technological adolescence that we're living in right now, we're not going to make it. And who knows how many millions of civilizations haven't. But I think the tolls are heralding the start of a new age, and with that new age has to come space exploration. We're going to have to go to Mars and set up a colony, because eventually, as the sun becomes brighter before it becomes a supernova, we will have to start exploring other planets. What do you think about that?
It's inevitable. And the voices I hear about the benevolent ones, the ancients, looking at us, they're all wondering why, after they have given us so much knowledge, wisdom, so many techniques, why are we still in this space of unruly earth creatures? What would happen if overnight every single person on planet Earth suddenly came to the realization, oh my God, we're all the same DNA. We're all one family. We could, almost overnight, create that utopian Shangri-La paradise that is the real destiny of Earth. But it requires vigilance, sharing, accepting, and evolving. Still, we live in hope, because many are on this path. to save Earth and its inhabitants.
And I think we can see now that there are a lot of souls that are leaving the planet not to come back. And there is a feeling that there is a change coming about. And of course, this also means there's a lot of upheaval that I think our generation, the people who are alive today, are the ones who are going to go through that painful process of leaving the old world and going into this new Gaia interconnected type world that is coming. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about the Akashic records, what they are, and I'll try to spin that back into science. But please tell us a little bit about that.
I like to call this the stream of consciousness. There are, without question, parallel universes, other dimensions existing simultaneously, coexisting with us. And if one can quiet the mind and get into a space of meditative trance, then one can tap into these things. But if you're going to someone else to help you retrieve info from these records, you had better be darn sure that this person is straight, sober, and tuned in, because these are important things that, oh, you see, we got a message. That was my spirit guide saying, yeah, you're right, man. It exists. And people like Tesla, Newton, Einstein, Da Vinci could access it. And we're getting better at it. It's there for us. It's as though it's just like those radio waves floating out in space, going to other galaxies, other nebulae. That information is there, and sooner or later, other entities will probably grab it and get a real laugh out of planet Earth. It's already happening, and how lucky to be a part of it. Just remember, don't let any of this knowledge interfere with your happiness, because after all, life is a meaningless flow of energy with no particular purpose except having fun. If you're not having fun, you had better reassess your priorities. I know 1 million people intimately after 50 trips around the world, 30 states, 15 countries. And I've had about over 258,000 personal readings with these people. And do you know that there has not been one variable to the answer of this question, which I ask all of them because I want them to contemplate it. You get one wish, the genie's here. What is it? Every single person, regardless of age, race, history, nation, world peace. What else matters? Now, with the majority of people on planet Earth wishing for this, there's hope. But there is a handful of what could be called non-light workers, the not so lightened creatures, or not so enlightened creatures, who hold a small group which holds a financial, economic, and resource control power. There's an appeal to the low part of the ego for this control. And the eerie part is that it's relative to the good guys, it's a small number. Somehow they've managed, through their movie they've created of planet Earth, to put themselves in the position of power and not to bring peace, justice, fairness, equality, food, housing. There, look, 50 years ago, there was already enough. It was enough of everything on Earth for every person to have comfort, security, work, all the basics. But we can see, as we study the governments, the leaders, the corporate conglomerates, we can see who's wielding the power. And do we have an opportunity to change this? Every time we speak, every time we vote. For heaven's sake, let the light workers start assuming responsibility for being part of the change to utopia.
That reminds me of a beautiful study done in Washington, D.C., where this physicist who also practiced yoga and meditation did a study where he took a group of 30 transcendental meditation people, and they all meditated on this one thought, that there will be no crime in Washington, D.C. They did that for a period of 2 weeks, and amazingly, when they went back to look at the crime statistics, it went from this number, when they started the meditation, dropped to maybe 1/4 of what it was, and when they stopped meditating, it went back up to the normal percentage. So that clearly tells you that just for a small group of people meditating on peace and meditated on lowering crime can make a difference. It's tangible, and it's, you could see it through experiments that is the case.
It's beautiful, it's outstanding, and it's one of the reasons why more and more schools worldwide, even in the West, are teaching mindfulness, control, and meditation to young students. This is going to be powerful. I'm sure you've seen those pictures of these mass meditations of young students. There is an effect. There's a powerful positive effect. Let us introduce every great thing we know to all those who are ready to assimilate.
Absolutely. And with that, we're coming to the draw of the program. And again, this is Physics for Psychics, where the mystical becomes science. I want you all to please give a round of applause to our co-host today, Countess Nadia Starella Alexandria, who joined us and had some wonderful insights. Let's give it up for her. Yay! And Countess, please tell us a little bit more about your websites and where we can find you.
I am always available for those in search of answers at CountessNadiaStarella.com, or you can find me on my book page, Facebook, An Ordinary Earth Angel with Extraordinary Gifts, or at one of my other books connected to DNA at www.dna-alphaomega.com. Let me say it again, www.dna-alphaomega.com. That particular book is called Orchestrating the Symphony of Ourselves.
Wonderful. And remember, it's not magic. It's just science that you haven't figured out yet. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.
Sayonara.
This is Physics for Psychics, where the mystical becomes scientific.
Welcome to the blissful world of Countess Nadia Starella. Today is the best day of my life, but then so were the 1001 days which preceded it. I have been blessed with many interests and see myself as a combination of Joan Rivers, Edgar Casey, Bucky Fuller, Mae West, and Lady Gaga. Let's add Billie Holiday. I invite you to order my new autobiographical book, which took years in the making. An Ordinary Earth Angel with Extraordinary Gifts. This is an autobiographical documentary performance journey, audio-video production on my life. It is a fascinating, unique look at both the incredible existence and philosophies of A, clairvoyant, bodhisattva, scientist, author, raconteur, minister, musician, composer, costume designer, comedian, psychologist, artist, actress, international TV radio personality, master statistician, classic film historian, bon vivant. There are excerpts from my family dynasty, travels, past lives, secrets held nowhere else on earth, connected to DNA programming for health, success, happiness, prosperity, and bliss. It may be one of the first of its kind because it embodies the live performance of the Creator, as well as the metaphysical messages from spirits and masters throughout history. May all who read it realize their dreams, know that there are others on exploratory journeys just like them, who can lead them to self-realization. A little bit about myself. I have been designing clothes since age 10, a singer-songwriter since age 12, in addition to being a clairvoyant, classic film historian, philosopher, environmentalist, comedian, enlightenment facilitator, happiness coach, romance counselor, author, and visionary. I have lived in 30 states and 10 countries, most notably in Japan, where I was a TV radio star. My fascination is with boogie boards, architecture, mythology, history, science, physics, etc. My multicultural background gives me the ability to connect to humans from every echelon of existence, find out what's going on with them, and come up with diverse, divine, and often hilarious solutions to everything. My mission is to share my miraculous secrets to health, success, and happiness. I am a gifted purveyor of love and illumination. My teachings are easy, and I teach profound messages wrapped up in mirth. I give lectures, readings, make appearances at bookstores, conferences, expos, and on radio, TV, and the internet. I make friends for life, and I am a non-judgmental guide for thousands of people worldwide. I promote self-love and teach you how to get cooperation and validation from the people around you. Allow me to share my lifetime journey with you by reading my book. I promise it will change your life.